Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because we've got this rather unusual Optimus Prime to check out today, and it's from a computer game no less. Yes, I have to admit that computer games are generally not really my jam. That's not hating or anything. I'm a big Mario Kart fan, but I've just never actually got around to playing Transformers Devastation at all. That said, I can't deny I think it looks pretty good fun, and I've heard nothing but good things about it from people online, and there's no doubt that the designs involved are pretty swish. So I think it's also kind of cool that they're making toys of them now, although that said, I've seen tons of negative opinion about this figure because people seem to think it doesn't live up to the sort of reputation of the game or whatever else, so we're going to make our own minds up today, but needless to say, there's plenty to discuss. And with that in mind, don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you a big fan of what you're seeing here? Is this the Optimus Prime of your dreams, or do you think it looks a little bit lackluster? I should also mention before we get going that this review is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers specialist with tons of robots in disguise up for pre-order and in stock right now. I'm going to pop a referral link down in the description below, so if you use that, there are very often discounts to be had, so what are you waiting for? If you live in Europe, absolutely go and check them out. So turning our attention to the robot mode, in a world where we're currently getting tons of G1 styled Optimus Primes, does this thing stack up against the competition? You know, it's a very crowded marketplace. We've just had the Studio Series 86 toy, which many people think is fantastic, so it's a bit of a strange prospect in many ways, which I think is where some of the backlash has come from. And if we jump straight to the comparisons, you'll see that he is significantly smaller than that other Studio Series effort, and indeed the Earthrise Optimus Prime mold as well, so that is a little bit different. It does kind of put it in a different space, but there are also some people that have been disappointed by that smaller size, especially as it's supposed to kind of scale with some of the other Devastation figures, such as the Sideswipe mold, so this being a deluxe, it's a little bit of a strange choice, but you know, purely from an individual toy perspective, it does kind of set it apart. And to be fair, it's not the first time we've seen something like this in recent memory. You know, we had the deluxe-sized G1 Universe Optimus Prime in Legacy as well, and that turned out really, really great. So I do think that regardless of anything else that it scales with or any of that kind of concern, there is kind of a market for different sizes of Optimus Prime toys. Now, looks-wise, there's quite a lot to say about this guy, especially as, you know, on the face of it, it's sort of cartoon style, but then it's got this kind of cell shading on the windows just there, which is obviously meant to evoke the computer game or video game or whatever you want to call it, but it's a strange choice because it kind of works, but without any other cell shading on this figure, it's a bit standalone, but I still think the overall look of this guy is really rather nice. I mean, I do quite like what they're cooking with that head sculpt. It's kind of got that slightly rounded quality of some of the shots from the original G1 cartoon, if anything. You know, it's a little bit less squared off than perhaps the Studio Series 86 alternative, so it's a good look. It's got nice blue eyes, it's fairly handsome, and I think it works. There's not really much to be said here in terms of finish and paint elsewhere. I mean, you've got a little bit of yellow there on the hips, as you would kind of expect, and a bit of grey just underneath, but by and large it's fairly plain overall. There's also a kind of a slight look of things not being tabbed in here. I mean, that is how it's supposed to be, but something about it looks a little bit kind of not cohesive for me. I don't know. You got quite a nice white outline Autobot logo on the left shoulder there, as you might expect, but you know, no kind of silver or anything on the smokestacks or anything like this, so it does look a little bit plain in places. I do think the legs are a little bit unsightly, mainly because of the gappiness going on in the thigh. You know, you've then got this very prominent red mushroom peg in there, and there's plenty of gappiness in the lower leg as well. You kind of can't get away from it. Not to mention that little stamp also, so it's all a bit too prominent. And look, we have to talk about the bum, right? Because, you know, a bit like the Earthrise Prime, they've opted to put the wheels on his rear, and man, that is a bit of a killer, honestly. Like, it just sticks out like a sore thumb at the back. It's pretty unsightly. I mean, it's a difficult one because ultimately this kind of stuff has got to go somewhere, right? And this is only a deluxe, so it is quite a small toy, but I'm not sure this was kind of the solution that I would have had in mind. It just doesn't look great, gotta say, doesn't look great. Slightly odd on the wrists as well, where you've just got a little peak of something coming out at the side due to transformation, so a bit of an oddity there. By and large though, I really don't mind the look of this guy, honestly. Like, for a deluxe price point, I think it's a pretty nifty Optimus Prime. It's definitely not perfect. There are some absolute compromises baked in, but still, it's kind of fun. I mean, don't get me wrong here, we're not talking figure of the year by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I had thought that this thing was going to be an utter travesty from the way people are talking about it online, and I definitely don't think it's that either. Now, articulation-wise, the head can look from side to side, but not up or down really at all. Now, the shoulders are a little bit of an oddity. They do let the side down a bit by my estimation, and that's mainly because when you raise them all the way up, they sit in this very weird position on top of the main body, and then you've got the kind of smokestack interfering with the head a little bit and just sits in a very weird place, you know, it doesn't look quite right, so I really don't like how that plays out. Thanks to transformation though, you do have a little bit of a backwards butterfly joint, and of course there is movement elsewhere in the shoulder as well. You've got a bicep rotation in there and a 90-degree bend at the elbow. Now the hands will wiggle side to side, but no wrist swivel. There is a waist swivel, as you might expect. It's ever so slightly impeded by the wheel bum. Likewise, the hips should have a lot of range, but they're slightly impeded by the way it kind of clashes with the main body just there, so you'll only really get to about 90 degrees, which is a little bit of a shame, but there is outward movement at the hips as well. You've then got that mushroom peg rotation at the knee, and you'll get a 90-degree bend there also, and a very decent range of ankle tilt, all the way down in fact. Which means all in for a Deluxe, he's pretty posable actually, although there are again some compromises along the way, and I really do not like how those shoulders work. It's just like, yeah, what are we even doing with this, right? My god. You then do have some features on offer. Now, I wasn't sure initially, but he does have a little matrix of leadership, which you can find inside his chest, just here. No paint or anything like that on there, so it does look pretty plain, it's got to be said, but still, it's an option, it's a thing. And he can sort of hold the matrix, because these little tab slots just in the sides of his palm, so if you really want him to, you can just peg it in like so. And although, yes, it takes a surprising amount of fiddling to get it into his hands, you can kind of recreate the whole light our darkest hour thing. It looks a little bit strange, but it's doable. Then, of course, we need to talk about his only weapon that's included here, which is his battle axe. And it's kind of got this slightly odd little effect going on here, like a swoosh effect, which even my son saw and said, wow, that's strange. Anyway, as you might expect, you can just go ahead and tap the thing right into his palm. It's a little bit of a snug fit, but there it goes, and yeah, it just looks a little bit weird to me, I think. Like, the swooshing effect is a nice idea. I don't know if it quite comes off in practice. That little red sticking outy tab, which is storage for the vehicle mode, doesn't really work visually either. And I just think that the alternative that we had with the G1 Universe op from Legacy with the clear plastic was so much more appealing. It just looks significantly nicer, even though it's arguably simpler because it's not painted. So a real weird one, as I say. The real crime here, though, is the omission of any other accessories, right? Like, in terms of weapons, the axe is it. And you can't tell me that there's not something missing here, right? Because where's his gun? It just leaves it all feeling quite incomplete as a total package. You know, that one missing accessory, the lack of a gun. Fortunately, in another solid win for the G1 Legacy Optimus Prime, this guy comes with two, so he's got a spare. And as bizarre as it sounds, that one simple addition just completely changes the feel of this robot mode to my eye. It just makes it feel so much more complete, cohesive, like this is what he should have come with straight out the box. So the fact that they didn't is strange, but at least there's an option there if you have both of these toys, right? It's just so odd to me that they didn't throw it in here. You know, it kind of makes the whole thing feel very budget somehow, like a few corners were cut, especially when the Legacy Optimus came with two guns and the battle axe and a matrix, and it's just really, really good. So I do think that Devastation Optimus Prime kind of pales a little bit in this kind of comparison of the Deluxes, I'm not gonna lie. And you know, as much as him being a Deluxe is a bit of a strange one in some regards, I can also kind of see the appeal. Like, when you stack him up against stuff like the Studio Series Dinobots, it actually kind of works to my eye. Like, it's a bit of fun to have a smaller Optimus Prime versus some of those traditionally bigger lads, you know? And I can't deny there's a genuine thrill from seeing a slightly more miniature version of the character versus stuff like your Night Warrior's Devastator, because, you know, this is always kind of how they were represented in the cartoon and in Devastation as well, so I think it kind of works. Anyway, we should talk transformation on this guy, and the first thing you want to do is turn his head around, and then in a movement which feels slightly reminiscent of the Studio Series 86 design, you kind of want to flip it over like so. You've then got his little bum wheels, which just want to fold down at the sides and just kind of clip in there. Rotate at the waist, and you've then got these little sides of the abs, which just want to come out and fold round to the back, and you then want to grab his little front grille and just bring that forward, and it's actually not a fake grille on this version, which is slightly unusual for Optimus Prime toys, to be fair. And then just fold his legs back into position, and you've got these little clips on the side of the kind of abs, so they just want to clip in, and then fold his feet down and the heels as well, just bring those into position. You've then got these little bits on the inside of the legs which just fold out to kind of make the trailer hitch, so just want to get those out of there and just bring the legs together in the middle. At which point this whole bit on the side of the leg folds forward and just clicks in just there, and the wheels that are hidden inside the legs fold down. You can probably then see where this is going, but you want to kind of fold this whole arm back, just fold the little hand in at the side, and then bring the forearm down and kind of get that in behind the grill, which can be a little bit fiddly to do. There's a bit of finagling. There's like this little tab on the bottom of the arm that just has to slide into place, and then jobs are good in there. And then on the top here, these shoulder bits actually peg in at the sides, just like that, and then you're pretty much done. And you're left with a fairly clean Optimus Prime truck. I mean, it's not the most impressive vehicle mode I've ever seen, but it's certainly not the worst either. I actually think the front of the cab is pretty impressive. You know, the trailer bed is really clean. It's a little bit of compromise around the sides here, which is the real tell, but other than that, it's pretty good actually. I mean, to be fair, it's easy to knock this thing, but that's a lot cleaner than most Optimus Prime truck beds that you see, right? Even than some masterpieces, so good job on that score, I think. I mean, even the head there, you know, you can see it, but I think they've done a great job with that bit. And again, this front bit all feels very solid and nicely tabbed together. There's a little bit of gappiness around the bumper just there, and you know, kind of a little bit, you can see the blue poking out of the hands, but generally for the size of it, pretty good job. I think it's just really these side pieces, as I say, that aren't quite as cohesive as perhaps they could be. You know, this wheel looks a little bit odd on the front there, and there's a little bit of gappiness, and you can see the hinge, so that's really the only trade-off. I guess it's a little bit of a compromise here with the feet as well, the way they stick out, but they gotta go somewhere. But by and large, this thing kind of looks on point, and it rolls really nicely, it feels really solid too, so honestly, for the price point we're talking here, I think they've done quite a nice job with it. There's even a little bit of weapon storage here. You've got that little tab slot connection, so you can put the axe in place like that. It looks really ridiculous, but it's an option. Equally, he does have that trailer hitch connection. I mean, he looks absolutely ridiculous pulling the Studio Series 86 trailer like it's way too big, obviously, but it can be done at least if you really wanted to. Alternatively, you could consider the slightly downsized Earthrise alternative, and it's still too big, truth be told, but that works a little bit better to my eye. And again, you know, people may be disappointed by it if they're looking for like a super accurate Devastation Studio Series release or whatever else, but as like a fun little Optimus Prime toy, a standalone thing, I kind of dig it. Like, don't get me wrong, absolutely not perfect, as I've already said. There are definitely some flaws here. You can see that just by looking at it. And you know, if you are looking for that ultimate Devastation representation, then maybe this is not going to be for you. But if you just want a fairly neat and fairly small little simple Optimus Prime toy, there are worse options out there. So on that balance, I'm going to give it a fairly light-hearted toot. Now, as already mentioned, this review is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers specialist who have got tons of robots in disguise in stock and available for pre-order right now. And if you look in the video description, you'll find an affiliate link which will give you the occasional discount. So what are you waiting for? If you live in Europe, absolutely go and give them a look. I'd also be very grateful if you could drop me a like for the day's effort, please, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.